Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate, ringsidenews.com. We are now into the month of July, which is going to be a huge month. Once we get past the 4th of July weekend, we have Brock Lesnar's fight coming up, we have the brand extension, and we have Battleground later in the month of July. So a lot going on. Make sure you stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding all that. Let's get down to your questions now from twitter.com/AaronRift. First one today comes from Marcus S. Do you think that Dean Ambrose will get hurt by working 2 house shows a night every weekend in Roman Reigns' absence? I certainly hope not. Dean Ambrose right now is really being a workhorse champion, sometimes pulling double shots. I believe that for one day, he had done a house show where he worked the opening match, and it was one of those rare occasions where the WWE title was defended in the opening match on a house show, and then he went to the next city for the other crew and defended the title in the main event. Dean Ambrose is just going crazy, and a lot of this is, of course, due to the Roman Reigns situation. I'm thinking that this will only be temporary, and once Roman comes back and we have the brand extension and the new championship, which at this point it's expected that there will be a second championship, then the load will be taken off Ambrose a bit. Hopefully he does not get hurt doing this schedule. I mean, the schedule is already difficult enough as it is, and for Ambrose to be doing 2 shows in one day, going back and forth to various cities and just crisscrossing the country, the guy's going to get worn out very quickly. So hopefully this is just a short-term thing for him. This one comes from Andrew. Based off of Stephanie's promo, do you think the Summerslam main event could be Ambrose versus Triple H? That remains to be seen. I think it's still more likely we get Seth Rollins versus Triple H, and I really think that's the best way to go. I think Seth Rollins should turn face as soon as possible. I think him being a heel is ridiculous, and I could see some sort of angle where Triple H costs Seth Rollins the WWE title, and that sets up the turn. There could always be a change of plans, though. Maybe Seth Rollins will be the heel on Smackdown for a while, or turn babyface and be on Smackdown, and Dean Ambrose will be on Raw, and he'll be a long-term champion in WWE, and we'll have Dean Ambrose versus Triple H. That's also a possibility. It's really hard to say right now because WWE tends to change plans all the time, and things are not finalized until the last minute. Anything can really happen between now and the brand split, and whatever direction WWE might have right now, that could very well change next week. So who knows what's going to happen, but if it was my call, I would go with Rollins versus Triple H at SummerSlam and go with Rollins as a babyface to feud with Triple H. This one comes from Dave Lesnar. Hey Aaron, with the brand split back, could they make Rollins the top guy on SmackDown and Reigns on Raw, a la Batista and Cena? Well, that's the thing. You could have Seth Rollins go onto SmackDown and become one of the top stars there. I always expected that the way WWE would do it is you would have Roman Reigns and another guy, whether it's Seth Rollins or AJ Styles, 2 guys on Raw as the top guys, and then you would have Cena with AJ or Rollins as the other 2 top guys on the other show. That's what I'm expecting at this point. I think that Roman Reigns, as I've mentioned in previous videos, will still be pushed as one of the top guys in the company despite the suspension. So yeah, that is a possibility that Seth Rollins might end up on SmackDown, and because of that, Triple H is on Raw, because he's Triple H, of course, and you have the Dean Ambrose versus Triple H feud as a backup. So that is certainly a possibility, but like I said in the previous question, it's really hard to say what's going to happen now, and perhaps if there was a solid plan, Roman Reigns getting suspended threw a monkey wrench in everything, and now everything is perhaps going to go in a different direction. Who knows? This one comes from B+ Players. Do you see Roman Reigns being relegated to SmackDown as a result of the failed wellness policy saga? I think there's a possibility we could see John Cena on Raw and Roman Reigns on SmackDown. I'm not sure if that's how WWE would punish Roman Reigns, because WWE's trying to make SmackDown an A show. They're doing the brand lottery, the draft, on SmackDown instead of Raw. That shows, at least for the short term, WWE's trying to boost the ratings for SmackDown and make it an A show again. So if Roman Reigns ends up on SmackDown, I really don't see it as punishment. I think it's more of WWE trying to elevate SmackDown, and maybe they feel that John Cena, as the long-term face of the company, should remain on Raw. That might be their decision, and whatever they do, I will not be surprised if it's, like I said, Cena and AJ or Rollins, and then Roman Reigns and AJ and Rollins on the other brand. This one comes from Chris. Hey Aaron, could you see DA keeping the belt and transitioning to SmackDown as the champion on that show? When you said DA, initially I thought, the first time I read it, I thought you were talking about Destination America. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. But then I realized, oh, it's Dean Ambrose. That's another interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of different ways WWE can go. If there's going to be 2 championships, you know, the most obvious thing WWE could do would be a disputed finish at Battleground, like where Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins both pin Dean Ambrose, and they each have a claim to being champion, and at that point WWE decides to have 2 championships. Roman Reigns is champion of one brand, Seth Rollins is champion of another brand. I could see that happening. I could see Dean Ambrose retaining the title, and then there's a tournament to crown the second champion for SmackDown. It could go any number of directions, and Ambrose could end up on SmackDown. There's so many different ways WWE can go with this, and just right now, you know, I'm speculating, I'm giving my opinion on things, but it's really hard to say what's going to happen exactly, and literally anything can change between now and the brand split. Alright, moving on here. Actually, this is still somewhat related to the same thing. Wrestling Chatterbox. If we are getting 2 heavyweight championships again for Raw and SmackDown, do you see them bringing back the gold belt? Again, this is just speculation on my part. I've heard that WWE is possibly going to have a similar belt to the current WWE Championship, only it's a different color. To me, that would be lame. I think I would prefer if WWE brought back the big gold belt, because that has been known as the World Heavyweight Championship for so long. I like that idea better than a Raw title, a Raw WWE title with a red strap, and then a SmackDown WWE title with a blue strap. I think that's kind of lame. I'd rather WWE either bring back the big gold belt or make a new design for an alternate championship. It's just my opinion, though, and it's quite possible they'll do what I just said, where they'll have basically the same title design but different color straps to represent each brand, which I think is lame, but it could happen. This one comes from Iper. Do you think that Daniel Bryan and Mauro Ranallo could be the new SmackDown commentator team? I like that. I like the idea of Daniel Bryan perhaps being the co-announcer with Mauro Ranallo, and we'll have to see how Daniel Bryan does with the Cruiserweight Classic, and if he really has the chemistry with Ranallo. Time will tell, but if Daniel Bryan does well in that role, then yeah, I would definitely be open to the idea of Bryan being a commentator. I think that he would add a lot of credibility to the broadcast booth. I think that it would give him something meaningful to do. I'm all for it if it's something he enjoys and he can get good at it. And once again, time will tell on that if he really embraces that role and runs with it. We just don't know at this point. It's just too soon to really say if that's a good decision or not. I mean, quite frankly, I think he'll be better than Byron Saxton in a heartbeat, no matter how much experience he has, but you know, that's just me. Got this one here from G-Host. When do you see Hulk Hogan making another appearance on WWE TV? Thanks, and keep up the good work. I've gotten this question before. I think that perhaps next year at WrestleMania, we might see Hulk Hogan. There's really no need for Hulk Hogan to show up unless it's for a big show like WrestleMania. And once all the heat has died down with the lawsuit and everything that's been going on in Hogan's personal life. So maybe next year's WrestleMania. But again, WWE might not want to bring him back right away. It could be several years before we see Hulk Hogan again. I do think we will see him again, though. I do feel that it's a matter of when and not if. This one comes from Bill Lawton. How would you rank RVD's Money in the Bank cash-in? He was one of the few that used it on his home turf. That's another one. I believe a few episodes ago, I was talking about the best Money in the Bank cash-ins, and RVD is definitely up there. The thing I like about his cash-in is it wasn't a surprise. He made it clear that he wanted to do it at One Night Stand. He gave John Cena advance notice, which is something a babyface would do, and it fit in with RVD, and it was the perfect timing to have him cash it in his home turf at ECW One Night Stand. So it was a nice change of pace. You know, WWE's done the same story over and over again over the years with the heel teasing the cash-in, and finally he does it in a surprise. So with RVD, it was something different and very memorable, of course, with the One Night Stand pay-per-view. It's got to be right up there, top 3 or 4. I mean, I would say the top 4, Edge, RVD, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose. Those would be the top 4, and then I'm sure everyone will debate which one was number 1 and debate the order of it. But those 4 would be my top 4 for sure. Got this one here from Young_CM Punk. If the New Day was to break up, who do you think would turn heel and why? I believe I've gotten this question before, but I'll go ahead and say it again. I think it would be Xavier Woods. I could see Big E perhaps getting a strong singles push in WWE once the New Day breaks up. I think he has potential to go far. Kofi, I think he's doing really well, and he surprisingly did well as a heel when the New Day were heels, but I think Kofi overall works better as a babyface. I think Xavier, I just sense that he would be the best at being a heel and being the one to turn on the other two. I just sense that. That's my gut feeling on it, that Xavier would be the one. I do feel it's too soon, though. You know, people ask me about the Wyatt family storyline. I think it's too soon, but when it does happen, I think Xavier is the best bet to be the guy that breaks up the group, much like Seth Rollins was the one that broke up the Shield. This one comes from Andy Cruz. Kurt Angle was a staple on Smackdown. Do you see him returning and being the new Smackdown GM? I think it's unlikely unless WWE is swerving everybody with this announcement that Kurt Angle is not coming back to the company, at least in the short term, and he's not going to be part of the brand split. That's what Kurt Angle has said publicly. There's always a possibility of a swerve. Kurt Angle as SmackDown GM, I would be fine with it. I think that it would be a good way to utilize Kurt in a way that can get him back on television without him actually having to wrestle or even get physical. He can just come out and make matches. So I think it's a good way to bring him back if he is going to come back soon. But I think like everyone else, I would like to see him wrestle one more time in WWE, at least one more time, if not more, if he can do it. So I think that if Angle was to come back, WWE would need to have him wrestle, because once he returns, the fans are going to want to see him get back in the ring again. And, that could be a problem with Bryan, too, with having him on SmackDown, whether it's as a GM or doing commentary. Fans seeing him on television every week, they'll be chanting one more match at him, and there'll be that sort of expectation that Daniel Bryan might one day come back and wrestle one more time. And same thing with Angle. So if WWE is going to bring him back, period, I mean, they should try to bring him back for one more match if possible. This one comes from Grant Peoples. What is your opinion on Rick Rude's wrestling career? Rick Rude was one of the best heels of his era. I mean, he was definitely up there, and some would argue that he should have been in a main event program with Hulk Hogan, and for whatever reason it didn't happen. But Rude was a tremendous heel, and he was a great wrestler. I mean, he really had all the attributes. He could talk, he could wrestle, he had the look, he had everything going for him. And, he really hit his peak in WCW, more so than WWE. I mean, when he went to WCW, he had memorable matches with Steamboat, and he just went out there and became one of the guys that carried the company in 92 and 93. And Rude, if not for his back injury in 94, he could have very well feuded with Hulk Hogan and been a major star for years to come in WCW. And there were reports that he had even trained for a comeback prior to his untimely death. And I think if he had come back, he would have done well. I mean, Rick Rude would have worked well in any era. I mean, whether it was the Golden Era, which he was part of, or the Attitude Era, or even today in WWE, Rick Rude, my opinion, could have succeeded in any era of WWE. He was just that talented. That'll wrap it up for this edition of No DQ&A video. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the very latest WWE news and rumors. Subscribe at youtube.com/NoDQCAW or Aaron Rift NoDQ. My personal channel is Aaron Rift on YouTube. And make sure you follow NoDQ on Facebook and Twitter at NoDQDOTCOM for both sites. You can also follow my personal accounts on Twitter and Facebook at Aaron Rift. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time for another edition of No DQ&A video.